Do you want to learn how to make a 3D text like this in Blender and use it in Davinci Resolve? In this video I show you how I build it. Okay, so here we are in Blender. Let's change the top view first. Press tab to edit the text, and let's say I want to put 3D text. Let's duplicate that with Shift D, G and Y to move it below it. Tab again, change this to Davinci Resolve. Can be on 2 lines, I guess. Now let's change the font to something more, perhaps we can get, okay, something more suitable for this purpose, like Nexa. Okay, let's align the size with this. Is pretty close. Let's actually put this on a separate text element like this, so then we can change the character spacing, or maybe slightly scale down the size of the font. Okay, this starts to look good. Now let's turn this into 3D. From geometry, we add some extrusion. You cannot see it from the top view, so let's move the perspective with the middle mouse like this. Here we go. Let's say 0.09. And then we can also make it thicker by using the bevel depth here. Maybe that's too much. Yeah, let's use 1. All right. Now to match it with our screen, let's go into our camera and see how it looks like. So we are now looking at the camera from here, so we want to rotate the text. So we press R on the keyboard, X, and type in 90. Back to the camera, and this looks much better. Okay, to fit this into our frame, let's just first place it on the side, because in the final video I'm going to be on this side, so the text needs to be here. Move it up. And this is also going to work as the thumbnail, so the placement is essential. So it's important to have the placement right. One thing we can also play with here is to double R on the keyboard to release the rotation in all axes. Let's see which kind of location looks good. I guess this is good as any. Next, let's change to rendered view by pressing Z on the keyboard. And as we can see, it doesn't look too great yet. To make rendering fast, we're going to keep this in EV. We're not going to do the cycles. We can enable ray tracing because I'm using an RTX card. From the film tab, we can turn this to transparent because we're going to export this as a PNG sequence that we can then use in Davinci Resolve. So what we need to do now is to add some more lights to our scene because currently we cannot see much. So Shift A, select light and area. And then we can move this with G on this side, double R, and point it towards our text. Then from the light settings, let's increase the power to say 100. Much better. Then we can duplicate the light and place another one here. As this is going to work as a thumbnail, I don't want to go too crazy with the design. I want to keep it easy to read so the packaging is clear as possible. The next thing we can do is to go to the shader editor, pick one of those text elements and click new. So make this look a little more interesting, we can add some details to it. We can adjust the metallic value, how metallic it looks, just the roughness. And let's say we want to make it look like brushed metal, like brushed aluminum. And we could do that by adding a ramp, connect it to, then we want to add a bump node, connect color to height and normal to normal. And on this side, we're going to need noise texture, plug it here. And this is our starting point. So what we can do here is to add a mapping node, connect it to the vector, and then start playing with the values. Okay, let's zoom out. Okay, like this, it looks pretty cool. Now we can copy the same style to the other two here. So we can first rename this as, let's say, metal texture. Click here, select the same texture, and same for here. Back to our camera. And this could probably work. Let's try to zoom it. So the final thing to do here is to create an animation. And we can do it from here if we change this timeline. So first of all, we want to move each of them together, not individually. So we can group them together by selecting them all by holding down Shift key and then pressing Ctrl P in the keyboard and selecting Object. Now all the text elements follow this top one. So if I click R on the keyboard, even if only the first one is selected, the other two is also moving. Now, to start playing with this, let's first select this Object Properties tab and insert a keyframe in the location and rotation by pressing I on the keyboard. All my videos are shot in the 30 frames per second frame rate. So let's go to output settings, to output properties, and change the frame rate to 30. And then we can calculate how long this animation should be. So if we want it to last for 5 seconds, that would be 5 times 30, and that means 150 frames. So I move the playhead here in the 150 frame, and then again go to press I on both of the location and rotation values. So by the end of the animation, we want to rotate and move the 3D text out of the frame. So we can start by first rotating it on X-axis like this, and then move the location with the X-axis like this out of the frame. To save the changes, we always want to press I on the keyboard. So now we see that from 0 to 150 frames, we have a linear animation moving from the middle to the side. So first thing we want to do, depending on the settings you have in your preferences for animation, we can change the default interpolation to Bezier, and we can also do it manually here by right-clicking on the timeline and changing the interpolation mode to Bezier, and also easing mode to automatic easing or ease in and ease out. This makes the animation look much smoother, like this. But I want to keep the text there in the middle before it starts moving, so we can select this first keyframe like this and move it, let's say, to frame 90. And then we go back to the beginning and do a little more adjusting. Let's say we change the angle, rotation a little bit. Just find something that looks good, like this. Okay, let's see how it looks. Okay, that could work. We don't need to do anything crazy, but of course, if you want, you can make it rotate completely if you want, but that's not the purpose here. Let's keep it simple. And we also want to extend the length a little bit because my intro takes more than 5 seconds. So let's say we want to extend it to 240 frames. Move the second keyframe to 200. A little bit of adjusting. Okay, maybe a bigger, maybe a stronger angle, like this. And to make this a little more interesting, we can also change the color of the light a little bit. Say this one is more like cyan, and the other one is orange, like a little warmer, not too much. And then we can also animate a light moving close to the text to create sort of a highlight. Let's see if we can make that work. Let's change the shape to a wider one. Move it in front of the text. Rotate. Change this local. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Add 51. What if this is blue? Looks pretty cool, huh? Okay, let's say it starts from that bottom position. So we go to the first frame, that keyframe to the location, and then go all the way to the final frame that the text moves out of the image, and move it up like so. We can also try to rotate it. Let's see what happens if we rotate it like this and this. Okay, let's see. Well, let's move it a little further away from the actual text so it doesn't clip like this. It has to be a lower value on the y-axis. Let's try this one. Okay, another try. You can hide the extra elements by clicking here so we see only the text. ¿Cómo? And I think that's ready. Let's save our file and render it to a folder called 3D text. Start to render with Control F12. Okay, looks like the render is complete. Now we can go into Davinci Resolve and bring our sequence there. In a new project, 3D text. All right, and now we are in Davinci Resolve. I can bring the file here, the main video file, and then bring in the PNG sequence from my temp folder on C drive. Here we go. Drag it here on the timeline. Let's see how it looks. Okay, let's start like this. Yeah, let's do a little bit of adjusting. Okay, use a bit of zoom. Then I'm gonna use a bit of zoom to move myself more to the right. Okay. I shot the video in HDR10+, so that's why it looks a little bit like log footage. I'm gonna fix it later. Okay, let's cut this break. Okay, that's basically it. I can also bring in Blender logo. I can bring in Blender logo and place it here to make it obvious that this is not only the Davinci Resolve tutorial, but it's done with Blender. Okay, after a little bit of color grading, it looks better. So let's try that again. Okay, perfect. To make it pop out, we can also add a drop shadow effect from OpenFX, like this. Lower the distance, add strength, and now it's easier to read. Let's see how it looks like. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this. And finally, how to use this as a thumbnail, how to export a thumbnail from Davinci Resolve. You simply go to File, Export, Current Frame as TIL. And this will be your thumbnail. Here it is. If you liked the video, please subscribe and keep watching by clicking one of these next.